Why do so many hardworking people still struggle to build wealth? One major reason is something you deal with almost every day: taxes. Imagine you work hard enough to earn $80,000 a year, but after income taxes and payroll deductions, let's say roughly $58,000 actually reaches you. That's a $22,000 gap before you've paid for your home, filled your car with gas, or bought anything. Now imagine a similar $22,000 annual gap over 20 years. That's $440,000. And that's before considering what money could potentially have earned if some of it had instead been available for long-term investing. But here's what makes the tax problem feel even bigger. It doesn't necessarily end with your paycheck. You earn money, taxes and deductions can apply. You buy taxable goods, sales taxes can apply. You put fuel in the car you need to get to work, fuel taxes can be part of the price. You own a home, property taxes can apply. You spend money simply living your life, and different taxes can show up again, depending on what you buy and where you live. So the real question isn't just, how much money do you make? It's, after decades of earning, paying taxes, living, and surviving, how much is actually left to build wealth? That's the tax problem we're breaking down today. The $80,000 worker. Let's imagine a man named David. David is 40 years old. He lives in California with his wife and 2 children. He has a mortgage, a car, and a full-time job. Nothing unusual. David wakes up Monday morning at 6, gets ready, drives to work, works 8 or 9 hours, drives home, spends a few hours with his family, goes to sleep. Then Tuesday comes. He does it again. Wednesday, again. Thursday, again. Friday, again. David has spent years doing this, and after working his way up, he finally earns $80,000 a year. That sounds like good money, but there's a difference between earning $80,000 and having $80,000 available to build your life. Using our simplified example, after income taxes and payroll deductions, approximately $58,000 reaches David. The exact number will depend on his filing situation, benefits, deductions, and other circumstances, so $58,000 is simply our example. But look at David's situation. He worked enough to earn $80,000. His household has roughly $58,000. And David hasn't bought anything yet. He hasn't paid his mortgage. He hasn't bought groceries. He hasn't filled his car. He hasn't paid the electricity bill. He hasn't saved for retirement. He hasn't invested $1. And already, there's a $22,000 difference between gross income and take-home pay. That's where the frustration starts. And it doesn't stop at the paycheck. Now David gets his take-home pay, but he still has to live. Saturday morning, David goes shopping. His family needs groceries, cleaning supplies, clothes for the kids, soap, toilet paper, household products. Now, California generally doesn't apply sales tax to many basic grocery foods, but many other things David and his family buy are taxable. David walks into the store using money that has already been reduced by income taxes and payroll deductions. He fills his cart, gets to the checkout, and on the taxable items, sales tax is added. Think about what just happened from David's perspective. He worked for the money. Taxes and payroll deductions reduced what reached him. He received what's left. And when he spends some of that remaining money on taxable purchases, another tax applies. David isn't thinking about tax policy. He's thinking, I'm just trying to take care of my family. He pays, walks outside, loads everything into his car, then notices something. His fuel light is on, and he still needs this car to get to work Monday morning. He needs the car to earn the money. David stops at a California gas station. He needs his car. His job isn't close enough to walk, so he fills the tank. And California gasoline prices include federal and state fuel taxes, along with other applicable costs and charges. Think about the cycle. David needs his car to go to work. He goes to work to earn money. Taxes and payroll deductions reduce what reaches him. Then he uses some of that remaining money to buy gasoline. Taxes are part of what he pays for that fuel, and he needs that gasoline to drive back to work, to earn the next paycheck. That's where the frustration becomes real, because David isn't filling his tank for fun. Transportation is part of what allows him to earn his income in the first place. Then David drives home. He pulls into his driveway, looks at his house, and realizes the tax story isn't finished there either. The California home. David owns his home. Every month, he makes his mortgage payment. Now, the mortgage payment itself isn't simply another tax. Part of it generally goes toward principal. Part goes toward interest. But owning property comes with another obligation: property tax. California homeowners generally pay property taxes based on assessed value under the state's property tax system, and additional local assessments can affect the total bill. So David looks at his house differently. He worked to earn the money for the down payment. He uses his take-home income to make his mortgage payments. And as a homeowner, he also has an ongoing property tax obligation: mortgage, property tax, insurance, utilities, maintenance, repairs, all competing for the same pool of money David has left after his paycheck deductions. And remember, David is still supposed to save, still supposed to invest, still supposed to prepare for retirement, still supposed to build an emergency fund, still supposed to build wealth. One Sunday evening, David sits down at his kitchen table. He opens his laptop. His pay statement is beside him. His mortgage statement is sitting there. A few receipts are scattered across the table, and he thinks, I make $80,000 a year. Why does it feel like everybody gets paid before I do? That's the frustration at the heart of the tax trap. Now multiply it by a career. David looks back at his salary, $80,000. Then he looks at our hypothetical take-home figure, $58,000, a difference of $22,000. Now imagine, just for illustration, that a similar $22,000 annual gap existed for 20 years. 22,000 times 20 equals $440,000, almost $500,000. Now, that doesn't mean David would otherwise have had an extra $440,000 sitting in his bank account. His income could change, tax rates and laws could change, his circumstances could change. The calculation simply shows the scale of a recurring annual difference over a long working career. Because taxes aren't something David encounters once, it's year after year after year. And that's before considering the taxes he may encounter when spending some of his take-home income. That's what makes the numbers feel so different when you stop looking at one paycheck and start looking at 20 or 30 years of work. But there's another cost. There's something else David realizes. Building wealth requires money. If David wants to invest, he needs money. If he wants to build retirement savings, he needs money. If he wants to start a business, he needs capital. If he wants to buy assets, he needs money. And money invested over long periods can potentially compound. Returns aren't guaranteed. Investments can rise or fall. But the basic idea of compounding is important. Money invested today has the opportunity to become more money later. So David starts thinking differently about that gap between what he earns and what he actually has available. Because he doesn't build wealth with the salary written on his employment contract. He builds wealth with whatever portion of his available resources he can eventually save and invest. And that portion has to survive a long journey first. Follow David's money. Think about the journey. David wakes up, goes to work, works 8 or 9 hours. His employer says, "You earned this much." Income taxes and payroll deductions apply. David gets what's left. He goes shopping. On taxable purchases, sales tax. He needs gasoline to get back to work. Fuel taxes are part of what he pays at the pump. He owns his home. Property tax. And then come all the expenses that aren't taxes. Mortgage, food, insurance, utilities, car costs, children, repairs, emergencies. And somewhere at the very end of that line is David, trying to invest, trying to save, trying to build something for retirement, trying to create wealth. That's why his $80,000 salary can feel very different in real life than it looks on paper. The real tax trap. So go back to the question we started with. Why do so many hardworking people still struggle to build wealth? One major reason can be the tax trap. David works hard enough to earn $80,000, but in our example, approximately $58,000 reaches him after income taxes and payroll deductions. Then he still has to live, and as he uses that remaining money, different taxes can appear again. Sales taxes on taxable purchases, fuel taxes, property taxes, and other applicable taxes and fees. Meanwhile, he's still expected to find money for his future. That's the frustration. Hard work created the $80,000 income, but David never had the entire $80,000 available to personally save, invest, or build assets. And over 20, 30, or 40 years, the difference between what someone earns and what they ultimately have available to build wealth can become enormous. So when you see a hardworking person earning what looks like good money, but struggling to build serious wealth, don't automatically assume they aren't working hard enough. David works hard. That's not the problem we're examining. The problem is that the journey between earning money and having money available to build wealth is much longer than the salary number suggests. Your salary tells people what you earned. It doesn't tell them what reached you. It doesn't tell them what it cost you to live. And most importantly, it doesn't tell them what was left to build wealth. That's the tax trap. The next trap. So go back to the question we started with. Why do so many hardworking people still struggle to build wealth? David earns $80,000 a year, but the number on his salary isn't the amount he actually has available to build wealth. Taxes and payroll deductions reduce what reaches him. Then he still has a mortgage, gas, groceries, bills, a family to support, and other taxes and expenses along the way. By the time David finally gets to the money he wants to save and invest, there may be much less left than that $80,000 salary suggests. That's the tax trap. But here's the problem. Taxes are only the first trap we're following in David's story. Because after David finally gets his paycheck, there's another trap waiting for the money that's left. Credit cards. At first, a credit card can feel like extra breathing room. You buy something today, you tell yourself you'll pay it off later. But when that balance starts carrying over month after month, interest enters the picture. And now, part of a future paycheck can already be committed before you even receive it. That's the credit card trap. And next Sunday, we're continuing David's story to see how credit card debt can make it even harder for hardworking people to build wealth. So subscribe and come back next Sunday, because we're going to follow David's money again and see where it goes.